All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is a great day to be here in Oklahoma. It's also a day that we need to really pay attention to because we've got some real issues going on in Oklahoma. As good of a day as we really are having, we are in crisis, and particularly our public schools are in deep, deep trouble right now because of a lack of leadership. We've got a corrupt leader who is doing everything he can to hurt us. And we have a special guest on Coffee with Democrats who's going to talk to us today about her advocacy for the children of Oklahoma. Good morning, Jena.
Well, good morning. It's good to see everybody. How is everybody doing today?
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you. I can tell you this right now. Any day that we have Jena Nelson on, it's a great day.
Well,
So
I'm
thank
I'm just going to remind you really quickly. It is Gina.
Gina. I, you know what? You have to remind me of that almost every time we talk.
It's
I,
fine.
I don't.
You are always great when you see me. You know my name. It's just when people see it written down, they second guess themselves. So no
I
worries
do.
at all.
I do. I apologize, Gina. And again, when I do this again, please backhand me, kick me under the table, whatever you got to do to just remind me that get it right, Kevin. Just get it right.
I would never do that to you, Kevin. Not at all.
Well, we got some real issues to talk about, and we really need to focus on those issues. And I can't think of a better person in the state of Oklahoma. You ran for superintendent of public instructions. We were very close, I think, at this last election. But again, we've got to focus on who the guy is that's in there. He has proven himself to be a corrupt leader. He's proven himself over and over again to be incompetent. So I want you to be able to use this opportunity right now to talk to us about some of the major issues that you're seeing that we need to be focused on. And we need the people of Oklahoma to get up in arms and get active and start working with our legislators and let them know that we cannot let this rogue leader take down Oklahoma we're already in almost last place. We can't go any further down. We've got to really work to start improving Oklahoma instead of tearing us down.
Well, thank you so much for the time today. One of the first things that I think that people need to really focus on, and it may not be the most showiest of things because sometimes things kind of get swept under the rug, but the first thing is that we really need to pay attention to the rules that were just passed because now we have accreditation scores that are going to be, I'm sorry, we have testing scores that are going to be tied to accreditation,
Absolutely.
which is very, very concerning because unless you really understand education policy, testing, you might miss the nuance because some people will say, well, if you're not passing these tests then you definitely should be taken over or you should have these lower report card grades. That's not exactly how this works because when we are looking at those testing scores, they are only looking at specific populations of our students, including our special education students.
Exactly.
And so when we are tying test scores, one test that these students take at the end of the year, and we are saying that this one test, this one snapshot determines whether our school will have a lower accreditation standard, whether, our students, have a school that they can graduate from. This is very, very concerning. So for me, when I look at this and then I say, okay, then what kind of resources were going to these schools? And what we're seeing is that some of the resources are being diverted in multitudes of ways. So, for example, we had specialists who were pulled off of their jobs to help certain schools that were on the CSI list and then sent to another school and then given a stipend to try and encourage tutoring because the tutoring program did not take off at all. So that's kind of one thing. But then we also see that there were millions of dollars in federal funds. And that federal fund, let me just remind you, that is Oklahoma kids' money. Money
Mhm.
for our Oklahoma kids that's supposed to go into their schools to help them is being left on the table. And we hear constantly saying we want to get rid of federal funding. Well, I hate to tell this to people, but Oklahoma must use the federal funds. We as a state cannot keep our schools going on just the revenue that we bring in as a state. So we have to have these programs. And so that's a major concern for me because that is taking money away from our children, away from our families, and away from our communities.
Right.
So that's just kind of a start. And then what we see is that we have heard over and over again that we want to get back to basics. We want to get back to thinking and reading and all of these things. But yet the opposite is starting to come out. No, we want to incorporate the Bible. We want to hire the developers of the Heritage Foundation and PragerU to help with our standards. And so for me, it feels like we're not focusing on making sure that we're getting kids up on their reading levels and their math levels, and we're creating a generation of critical thinkers. We're
Right. Right.
actually doing the opposite.
Right. And one of the things that we got to remember about the Heritage Foundation folks that are writing, that are wanting, excuse me, that Ryan Walters is wanting to bring on board to help rewrite some of our social studies programs. PragerU has been determined to be not even an educational system. I can't remember the rest of them, but none of the people that he's bringing on board are educators. These are people from the secular world who he's just trying to come in here and bring in people to help indoctrinate kids in a way that they've never been indoctrinated before. He wants to force, religious-based education on our students. He wants our teachers to do that. But at the same time, I get really alarmed about he attacks our teachers every single time he opens his mouth. He wants to blame our teachers. He says that because they might belong to a teachers union, that they are terrorists. And these terrorists are teaching our children. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There is no fact in that. That's absolutely a lie. And we've got to combat that. And what is also alarming here in the state of Oklahoma is we got a failed leadership in Oklahoma who is not going to challenge him on that. We've got a super majority Republican legislature. We've got a Republican governor, a Republican Senate. We've got a Republican House of Representatives. And these people are allowing this guy to go basically run roughshod over what we're doing with our education system. And that detriment that we're going to have on that is going to destroy our public education system. And with the destruction of public education, we're going to see a further degradation of the state of Oklahoma, because that most communities in Oklahoma, the biggest employer is the school district. So again, I don't want to take any of the wind out of your sails, and I don't want to take anything away from what you're going to say, but those seem to be some of the issues that I'm seeing along with what you're talking about.
Well, that's a lot to unpack. So let's
Yes,
go
it
back.
is.
Let's start at the very beginning and let's talk about those standards. Now, I first of all, I want to say that, just so that people understand that I'm not going to attack people of faith at all, because I want to say that I am a Christian myself,
Sure.
but my faith determines how I behave and not how I make others behave. This is
Perfect.
this is my guiding principle. So I
Yes.
want to start this out first by saying that. The next thing is that when we talk about those standards and incorporating, what they're wanting to do, there's a lot of discussion, and there are people who are saying, well, teachers, it's not the curriculum, correct, but teachers must teach to the standards.
Yes.
And that is what is very dangerous to me, because I have sat on the English Standards Committee. And what we do as teachers is that we get together, we look at it, we decide what should stay, the language should be changed. And so for me, This is a red flag because we're bringing in those people, like you said, that don't have teaching credentials,
Right.
that are not from Oklahoma, and they
Exactly.
are going to be able to reword those standards. And even, though as teachers, we have a freedom on how we teach. The fact is that we have to teach to those standards. And so for me, this is definitely something that is a cause for major, major concern,
Right.
because these standards are only revisited every 6 years. So
Right.
we will have children for 6 years of their educational career that will be looking at these standards. Now, the process of that standards is that once those standards are then written, they of course then are sent to our legislature, and our legislature has to approve them.
Right. Right.
So that is kind of where we are there. So if these come out all wackadoo, the legislature can decide if they will pass them or not. I'm going to leave it right there.
Right.
Moving on to that second part, when you were talking about calling teachers terrorists, let me say this: leaders do not treat people that they lead in that way. They
Right.
do not weaponize rhetoric. And
Yes.
what we have seen is that because of this different kind of weaponized rhetoric, we have had bomb threats against our public schools for weeks. We have
Right.
been for weeks on end, which is an interruption to our children's education, an
Right.
interruption and a safety hazard for our educators and for our families. That's not what we do as leaders.
Right.
Leaders are to make sure that everyone is safe. Leaders make sure that we are all in a common goal, and leaders take care of their people. That's what they
Absolutely.
do. And so, these things that keep popping up, I know, we all know, they're put up for a distraction, because
Yeah.
there are major things that should be addressed right now that are going on that are not being addressed.
Right.
And because it is a chess game. We're not playing the game right now in 24. We're playing games in 26.
Right.
My personal opinion is stop playing those games for 26. Take care of the people right now in 24. Make
Right.
sure that we're doing the right things, because public education should not be partisan. It is for
Exactly.
everyone.
Right.
And children do not come in with a party. They come in to learn, and that's what our focus should be on public education in this state.
Right. Right. Exactly. One of the things that I saw on yesterday, we had on Coffee with Democrats Representative Melissa Provenzano, and she sits on the LOFT committee, the Legislative Office for Financial. Uh, I can't remember the rest of it. Transparency. Anyway, she talked about there was a large amount of money that was going for Oklahoma to the for safety that got taken away because Ryan Walters was too incompetent to follow through. He's lost. He's such a cancer within the education system that he's lost almost his entire staff of people who know how to file for these grants. And then when he failed to with his leadership to go out and get that grant, now we're losing, I can't remember what it is, like $1.1 million in safety grants. So again, we've got to talk about that just a little bit, about what we're losing and how it ties directly back to failed leadership and a corrupt leader, Ryan Walters.
Well, and let's just be, very honest and think about going back even before that.
Sure.
He has, on camera, people, and there are videos of him that said, "I want to end federal funds. I
Yes.
don't want to accept federal funding."
Right.
And so that directly ties into what we're seeing right now with the people that he is already working with at the Heritage Foundation for Project 2025, because they want to defund the Department of Education at the federal level.
Right.
And what we are doing right now in Oklahoma is we are seeing the workshop version of that happening. And yes, there are multiple stories of people talking about how they were not given access to even log in to get into the programs that would allow us to apply for those federal funds. That is well documented, and I think we need to keep reminding people that that money goes to helping our kids.
Exactly.
And there are many people that were very competent at the State Department of Education,
Absolutely.
and they are long gone. And if you are going to have an agency of this size with the largest budget in the state of Oklahoma, we need to have someone who is a good steward of our tax dollars, a good
Thank you.
steward to education, a good steward to the people of Oklahoma, to make sure that they are taken care of and that their resources go to where they belong, so that our educators and our administrators can serve the children of our state.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about Project 2025 and the dangers associated with Project 2025. And our most vulnerable children are going to be the ones. And again, we know that Ryan Walters is 100% supportive of defunding our public education. But look how this is going to affect the people of Oklahoma, and particularly the most vulnerable children. That will Project 2025 will eliminate Head Start.
Yes, it will eliminate Head Start, which we know in Oklahoma. I will say we've got to give ourselves props. We have done amazing things with our Head Start program, and Head
Right.
Start is so vital because the data is out there that says that kids that participate in Head Start,
Right.
that they're more likely to graduate high school, that
Yes.
they are more less likely to be involved in crimes, that they really are more prepared for life. And so I think that cutting out a program like Head Start is absolutely asinine, because
Right.
we want to give our children every great start that we possibly can, and that starts with Head Start.
Sure.
In addition to those things that they want to cut, is they do want to cut the federal programs, Title I and Title IX.
Mhm. Yeah.
Of course, Title I talks about our low income students. That money also goes to our special education students. So
Right.
when you talk about our most vulnerable populations being affected, these are some of the demographics that'll be affected.
Yeah.
But I'd even take away the categories. It affects our children in
Right.
Oklahoma. It affects our children. And even if you don't have children, it affects Oklahomans. It affects
Sure.
families. And I think we all need to just take a deep breath, and stop making all of this about this team against this team. And it needs to be all of us coming together to say enough is enough with this insanity, enough
Right.
with the name calling, and enough of the things that are going to hurt our people, our Oklahomans, our Americans, and
Right.
focus on rebuilding and making sure that people have the resources they need to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've got a few more questions that I want to ask, but for those people who are on here who are asking this question, they don't know who Jena Nelson is. Jena Nelson, well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about your background and your qualifications to be able to talk about this, because you're highly qualified. I would argue that you are an expert in the field, that nobody else out there actually has your level of expertise in the state of Oklahoma. So, but again, I want you to be able to tell people about your own qualifications and why you're qualified to talk about this subject matter.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are very kind words, and I'm sure there may be some people out there that are disagreeing with you right now, but that is okay. So, just a little bit about me. I was a teacher for 17 years. In 2020, I was named the Oklahoma Teacher of the Year. In
Right.
2021, I was one of the top educators in the nation with the Award for Teaching Excellence, which is only given to about 45 educators across the state. I have ran a small business. I have also I've been given lots of wonderful awards, but I have gone overseas and taught. I've actually taught at the international music festival in Campina Grande. I have directed several times over in Scotland. I have been a coach for a Fortune 500 company, a leadership coach, where
Right.
I work with individuals and train them on how to be leaders, how they can, be their most successful selves. I have worked in the nonprofit industry and working on programs that deal with opioid and stimulant prevention, suicide prevention, and strengthening families. And I also go around and I help candidates run for office, those that have a passion for it, those who are like me, who had never been involved in politics, but just have a heart to be a public servant. And so that's what I work on. So that's just a little tiny snippet about some of the things that I have done. I've also had other jobs as well, but my main focus is to make sure that I'm helping people. That's where my heart is. No matter
Right.
what I do, I want to make sure that I'm helping people. And so, when I join you or when I talk or speak out, it's not because I'm running for something or I want something. It's because I see that people need help.
Right.
And I was always taught by Mr. Rogers that you need to be a helper. When people
Right.
are scared, look for the helpers. And so that means sometimes that we have to become those helpers.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we just experienced here in Oklahoma is our current superintendent of public instruction was really behind one of the driving, or he was one of the driving forces behind getting a private Christian school to be public funded. And our state Supreme Court just a few weeks ago ruled that that is an illegal thing, that the contract that they had actually signed up has to be disbanded. And I think in this point right now, when we talk about Dennis Prager, David Barton, Steve Deese, and Kevin Roberts coming on board to help rewrite the social studies programs and standards in the state of Oklahoma, this is in retaliation to that.
Well, I think it goes along with it.
Okay.
I don't think it's just retaliation. I think there are multiple plans that are going on right now, and Oklahoma is ground zero to try and end the separation of church and state.
Right.
And so when you hear people say, I welcome lawsuits, I want lawsuits, it's because they have the belief that they have the right people in place at the Supreme Court level to overturn these various cases and to end the separation of church and state.
Right.
I do applaud our Supreme Court for upholding our Constitution.
Absolutely.
Really and truly. And so I just have to, give them their flowers right now, because I think that we're going to see more and more of these kind of cases. We are going to see more and more push. And what we have to do as Americans is uphold the Constitution.
So, as part of our call to action for the people of Oklahoma, what are some of the things that you're advocating for that people in Oklahoma really need to start working on and working diligently, purposefully to try to fight back against some of this extremism that we see within our public education?
Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to talk to our friends, our neighbors, the people at the gas station, everywhere, because one of the things that I found out when I was running for office is that we have information deserts in our state. We
Sure.
have places in western, eastern, southeastern Oklahoma that don't get the same news that we do in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, etc. And so we have to be very intentional, whether it is at your county chair parties or just in general, of having these conversations about what is going on, and then providing them resources that they can go and investigate and learn as well. We can't just share a Facebook post.
Sure.
We need to give them some factual information.
Right.
The next thing is that we all need to start talking more to our legislators.
There you go.
And any of you who, I hear this a lot, well, mine won't listen to me. Well, it's just keep going and keep developing those relationships, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, it does not matter. You've got
Right.
to go and talk to them. And if you happen to know a little bit more on the subject than they do, then take the time to kindly educate.
Right.
I feel so much right now that we spend so much time yelling at each other and blaming and accusing each other, but we don't spend a lot of time just talking with each other.
Right. Right.
Have that time to have that good old fashioned common sense conversation. And if you can't reach them at the Capitol, when they get back home, see if you can set up a coffee or a lunch with them, or find out when they're having, a meeting, and just have these conversations and talk about your concerns. Bring your information to them and see what they know,
Right.
and keep at it,
Right. Right.
because just like the rest of us, our attention spans are very small, and we're very, very busy. And so sometimes we have to hear things a couple times for it to kind of sink in. And then the next thing is, get involved. It is
Right.
so easy to shut your doors and go, you know what? I don't need to. I don't need to think about politics. I don't like politics. You know what? You may not think about politics. You may not like politics, but politics is thinking about you, and it
Yes.
affects everything that you do, from your Medicare, and your Social Security, all the way down, to your education, and what's going on in your communities. And
Right.
the last thing I want you all to do is get involved in your local politics.
Right.
Start talking to your school board members, your city council members, your sheriffs, your county commissioners. Get to know them, and run.
Right.
Run for office. You don't have to, you don't have to have all of the, the know how to do everything. There's a lot of things you can learn. There's a lot of us folks out here that can help you, but get involved some way, uh,
Right.
because involvement is very important to know what's going on.
Sure. Sure. The one thing that is most harmful is to have uneducated electorate. And going back to what you just talked about, and I would just want to add one thing. When you go talk to your legislator, your senator, your representative, when you go talk to them, don't feel like you're alone. Invite your friends to do the same thing. The more people that do that, it's like, if one drop comes out of the sky and hits you on the head, it's just a drop of water. But when there's a flood of water that comes out of the sky, it's going to get you all wet. That's what our legislators need to experience. They need to experience that flood of information to help guide them, because again, they are human just like we are. They put their pants and their shoes on just like we do. And sometimes they have this misunderstanding, or this idea that, their idea is the right way. And sometimes just what you said, that kind, gentle persuasion, to just guide them in a direction that, and let them understand it. Their focus may be on the wrong thing, that their focus need to be changed. So I appreciate everything about you. We've got this set up that we can go as long as you want to, but really, I want to turn it back over to you and let you talk about some of the other issues that you think are really important at this point, that we need to focus on as well.
Well, there are so many things in the state of Oklahoma that we need to really focus on. And there are so many ways that people can get involved. And so, I really encourage everyone, get involved with your local nonprofits, get involved with organizations. There are some great ones that are out there, that people can go and get involved with, and that helps. But, we have to start looking at things that are going to help our people directly. We need to be focused more on mental health and healthcare in our state. We need to focus on education. We need to make sure that our veterans are taken care of, and we need to focus on agriculture as well. Um, I know it sounds like there's all of these things, but as a state, we can't be in our own silos.
Right,
We
right,
can't be that way. Everything connects together. And when we are all making sure that the quality of life for all of our people is a good quality of life, then we all can be successful. We can flip these numbers. We can
right.
stop being at the bottom of everything
Yes,
and really
exactly.
start rising up. because the issues that our rural friends are having right now are, yes, some of them may be very different than some of our urban and suburban, but they're not any less. And we have to make sure that we're including everyone. Oklahoma should be the home of everyone, and we should be under this big umbrella of being able to take care of our citizens, because really and truly, if we are as patriotic and as American as we say we are, then we take care of each other.
Right.
And that's something that's really important to me, is focusing on, yes, is there a problem? How can we solve it? And how do we solve it in the most efficient way that's going to help generations of Oklahomans to come?
Right. One of the things that I just want to build upon what you just talked about. We learned, I believe it was in 2013 during the Moore tornado, and this was again prior to 2016 when things started to really greatly divide in Oklahoma so horribly. But back in 2013, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we were really focused on the Oklahoma standard. And that Oklahoma standard was, we reach out to our neighbor no matter who they are, and we help pull that person up. And that's what we need to get back to in the state of Oklahoma, is helping to lift up everyone, lift up each other, encourage one another. Because like you said, all of these things that we see, whether it be that, I'm going to make a statistic, but I'm also going to clarify. We are ranked number 49th in education, but it's not because of our teachers. It's not because of our students. We're 49th because of a lack of leadership and a lack of funding and a lack of a lot of things that we need to have in the state of Oklahoma. But the biggest thing that we have a lack of is empathy for one another and helping one another. We've got to get back to that. Instead of calling each other's names, we've got to start getting back to the point where we lift each other and pull each other along. Because sometimes when I'm down and in the dumps and not feeling well, I've got to have that encouragement from somebody like Jena, who's going to grab me by the coat and say, "Come on, Kevin, you can do this."
Well, I tell you what, there's no greater investment than investing in the people of your state.
Yes, exactly right.
Because when we're all crossing that finish line together and we're being successful and we are loving our neighbors, all of our neighbors as ourselves, then we can truly reap all the benefits, and we can take that collective sigh and we can live together.
Right.
We can, focus on making sure that our people are taken care of, instead of just constantly trying to tear each other apart. I'm all about loving my neighbor.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the greatest commandment of all. And we need to follow that commandment. So this will kind of end our conversation. But again, for those people who are watching this, please don't just stop right now and forget about this conversation. Please share this conversation with your friends, your neighbors, your family, and let them know about this. And this was an important conversation we had with a great leader in the state of Oklahoma, somebody who is greatly thought of and is an advocate for education, who is somebody that I am so impressed with. So I want everybody to please share this message. You can share that on any one of our networks. We're on X, and that's at Coffee with Dems on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Go to Facebook. You'll be able to watch this again. Going to Facebook, it'll be on there, Coffee with Democrats. It's on YouTube. Again, Coffee with Democrats. And then as soon as we get done here, I'll put the recording over onto Spotify, and you'll be able to watch it on Coffee with Democrats on Spotify as well. There's multiple ways to do this. But again, please share this important message. It's not very long. This was a very short conversation that we've had. But again, Jena and I are going to have more conversations, and we've got many more ideas that we're going to work together on to try to get people more involved in what's going on with in Oklahoma here. So, Jena, you again, you're one of my biggest friends. I'm one of your biggest fans, and I appreciate you so much coming on Coffee with Democrats and having this discussion with us today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you are so great and so awesome. Um, we will. We don't have all of our plans in place right now, but as those camp plans come into place, we will be sure and share those with everybody. Until next time on Coffee with Democrats, everyone, please be safe. And again, Jena, thank you so much.